What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here. Going to be breaking down some of the latest fantasy football news, all these free agent signings. Going to be breaking all those down. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. Let me know who you think was the biggest free agent signing for fantasy football down in those comments down below. I'll respond as always. Without further ado, let's hop right into this thing. Okay, I'm just going to go team by team. I feel like that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, so let's talk Cardinals. I think the biggest winner here is obviously James Conner. He comes back on a deal, and you see Chase Edmonds depart in free agency. We'll talk about him later. But James Conner, I think he had 17 total touchdowns or something ridiculous last year. With the addition of Rodney Hudson, the offensive line last year made a huge difference in the run game, and he was a very good value for fantasy football. I think he is a solid high-end RB2, if not an RB1. I really think people are sleeping on him a little bit who have him ranked as a back-end RB2. I just disagree with that value, honestly, unless the Cardinals bring another running back. Zach Ertz back to Arizona as well. If they don't bring another wide receiver, I think that would be a huge win for Zach Ertz via the draft or free agency. Just because then, you got DeAndre Hopkins, Ertz, and Christian Kirk left the door. We'll talk about him again. Falcons signing Younghoe Koo, good for them. Locked up their kicker. Ravens, Morgan Moses, solid depth piece for them. Don't know. He's a guy who can play right tackle. I believe can play left tackle as well. And, really solid depth guy. He might play for them right away with Alejandro Villanueva retiring. Marcus Williams, a nice defensive piece for them. The Buffalo Bills signed Saffold to a one-year deal. That is a nice signing for the offensive line, a major upgrade at that guard spot. I think will help them, all over the place on offense, honestly. Big win for those running backs, a win for Josh Allen as well. He is a nice player, especially when he can stay on the field and stay healthy. The Carolina Panthers signed D'Onta Foreman. Corbett as well, Austin Corbett. That's a nice offensive line add for them. But I think D'Onta Foreman will get some work, be that guy that can take some of that weight off Christian McCaffrey's shoulders, so hopefully keep him out there for more Sundays. Look for them they're still looking at, quarterback as well as probably some offensive line upgrades throughout this offseason. The Bears really haven't done much as far as fantasy goes. The Bengals. Bengals are one of the wins of this free agency period to me because they went out and they got signed Alex Kappa and Ted Karras, two major upgrades for them at both guard spots. Yeah, they didn't address the tackle position, but Jonah Williams is probably the best offensive lineman on their team, plays left tackle. Maybe they find a right tackle in their draft. I don't know how exactly their plan is at this point, but, already two major upgrades to the offensive line that we saw just get, the Bengals led the league in sacks last year. I think Joe Burrow got sacked a ridiculous amount. Nice for them. And what we needed to see them do, good for Joe Mixon as well. The Browns, they traded for Amari Cooper. I think this is a win for Amari Cooper just because now he is like the only show in town in Cleveland right now as far as wide receiver goes. They could still draft somebody. But, when they're paying him $20 million a year, that they probably intend on getting that guy the rock. Jarvis was let go. So, a lot of targets were coming Amari Cooper's way. And he was definitely, competing for targets in Dallas with CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, a bunch of other people. Cowboys, though. Michael Gallup, I think this is good for him, good for his long-term value, being that number 2 in that Cowboys offense. Dalton Schultz, another guy I think is going to be a value come draft season. We saw that Dak Prescott trusts Schultz, especially over that intermediate part of the field. Goes to him a lot, help move those chains. And with Amari Cooper out of the equation and Michael Gallup recovering from a torn ACL this season, I think there could be a large target volume for Dalton Schultz and CeeDee Lamb in this offense. The Denver Broncos, obviously they traded for Russell Wilson, did a video on that. But that wasn't it for them. They went out and added Randy Gregory on defense, another big-time move. But honestly, I think most of what I covered is in that video on those guys. I would just say, Russ is going to make all those weapons significantly better. And it's a huge win that Melvin Gordon has not gone back to Denver so far. We want that to continue. Javonte Williams can be an absolute dynamite fantasy football winner if he is the guy there and they don't bring another running back to compete. Okay, Josh Reynolds re-signed with the Lions. I think he could be a nice piece to keep an eye on in deeper leagues just because Jared Goff trusts him. DJ Chark Was injured last year and honestly hasn't shown a ton on the field ever since I think it was his sophomore season where he had a kind of a breakout, but not too excited about him, although both those guys, are upgrades for the Detroit Lions at the wide receiver position. Devonta Adams back to Green Bay. We talked about that in that video. The Texans made a flurry of smaller moves, brought in some solid offensive line depth pieces, some guys on defense, but nothing, to move the needle a ton in any of these deals. But yeah, some more depth for them, certainly. And we'll see how the draft unfolds before we get a really good idea of how their offseason is going to carry over in this 2023 season. I guess 2022 season. I guess it will be the 2023 season, but not yet. Not yet. Till the end. That's when we'll start calling it that. When it matters. Colts, another team that's kind of sat on their hands a bit. Mo Alley Cox is back, and Jack Doyle's retired, so maybe he's more involved in offense, but I don't know if he's going to be a fantasy force by any means. The Jaguars, they signed Christian Kirk, 4-year, $72 million deal. I think like $37 or $39 million guaranteed. I don't remember off the top of my head. Then they also bring in Evan Ingram on a 1-year, $9 million deal, and Zay Jones on a 3-year, $24 million deal. Franchise tag Cam Robinson, sign Brandon Scherf. What does this mean? I think one of the biggest winners, Trevor Lawrence, huge winner. Surround him with some more talent on offense. Even if these guys aren't absolute studs, I do think they'll use Christian Kirk in a slot, though. Christian Kirk in the slot has been a stud his whole career. He's an explosive receiver from that position and was used on the outside a lot with the Cardinals. But I think you move him into that slot permanently, which I have to imagine giving him all that money is what their plan is. I think he can be extremely viable for fantasy. Not saying he's a wide receiver one by any means, but a solid option nonetheless. And then Evan Ingram, an athletic guy. Cam Robinson, you franchise tag him, bring in Brandon Scherf, one of the best guards in football. All of a sudden, two major offensive line additions. Cam Robinson was there, but he could have departed. And then Tyler Shatley, another solid, probably a depth piece, or maybe he's a starter, but nothing, not a huge excuse me, I can't talk. Not a huge needle mover there. But, yeah, some good moves for them. And I just think I'd be really happy if I was a Travis Etienne owner or a Trevor Lawrence Dynasty owner with these moves. You finally put some weapons around them. Zay Jones has been solid when he's been with the Raiders. Showed promise, a good athlete. Talked about the Orlando Brown Jr. coming back to Kansas City. Vegas, they just signed Chandler Jones, but again, not super fancy relevant. Mike Williams going back. He was another guy we talked about in that other deal. But, this is just them going all in on Justin Herbert and their rookie window to win, and they should. And it's good to see. The Rams bring back Joe Noteboom. That is a nice guy to keep around for them. Same with Brian Allen. Retaining both of these pieces is extremely good for Stafford, that offensive line, that running game just in general. We don't know exactly who that lead back is going to be. I think it will be Cam Akers and some Darrell Henderson mixed in as that change of pace back. I'm pretty confident in that. But it could be, 50-50 split. We just don't know yet. But keeping these offensive linemen around is big for them and those key offensive players. The Miami Dolphins, they bring in Chase Edmonds on this 2-year, $12.6 million deal. And I will point out that Teddy Bridgewater signing does give them some stability at that quarterback position if they find out quickly that Tua is not that guy. But yeah, Chase Edmonds I'm very excited for with Mike McDaniels coming over from San Francisco. They run the ball a lot, especially with a guy like Tua. You have to imagine that's the scheme for them is to run the ball a lot. They're going to make some more offensive line upgrades outside of Connor Williams if they want to do that with the offensive line they're coming into the season with. But Chase Edmonds, he's a quality back we saw in Arizona. He's a good athlete. He can catch the ball. He's a full third down back. Can play on all three downs. Not the biggest guy. You don't want to give him the huge workload. But I do think there's a situation now where he's the lead back for Miami if they don't go out and address the position any other ways. And he'd be the back that I would want to own in that backfield at this point in time. Minnesota Vikings. Nothing really fantasy relevant for them. New England Patriots, James White comes back on a 2-year, $5 million deal. He would be a guy I would keep my eyes on. He was a great value in drafts last year, and when he was healthy and on the field, he was looking like he was going to be a slam dunk draft value. He was going like the 14th round coming off an injury this year. I think he's going to be another great value next year coming back to New England, a system that he's comfortable with, and a system that asks him to catch the ball a lot. So yeah, excited about that one. Saints haven't done much. Giants also another team who, Glowinski from the Colts. That's a solid add, but he was probably one of the weaker players on that offensive line. Not to say that he can't come in and be a starter for the Giants and a plus starter for them, considering what their offensive line has been like in the past. The Jets re-signed Tevin Coleman. I don't take much for that for fantasy. CJ Uzama, that is a nice addition to that offense for them. Somebody who has seen a few big games with the Bengals, and Braxton Berrios obviously returns. I think he is a guy to keep an eye on. Another late guy I wouldn't mind drafting. We saw what he could do last year for the Jets, and you gotta hope Zach Wilson gets better. Eagles, not many fantasy relevant moves. Steelers, sign Mitch Trubisky and Okafor. I'm not even gonna try his name, but you know who I'm talking about. The offensive tackle. Bring in James Daniels as well. Mason Cole. They've got a major offensive line upgrades, and you bring in the quarterback potentially for the future in Mitch Trubisky. I really like what the Steelers are doing. I really like what this is gonna, give Najee Harris a chance to be successful. Give him some offensive line upgrades. Give him a quarterback that can push the ball downfield a little bit, move around with his legs. And we saw Mitch with Matt Nagy. We saw how bad Justin Fields was with Matt Nagy, and we saw Mitchell Trubisky actually take that team to the playoffs. So I think there's reason for optimism around Trubisky. Um, and yeah, we'll see how he is in a new system and a new position. San Francisco 49ers, not much fantasy relevant on their front. Seattle obviously made the trade, the Russell Wilson trade. Will Disley they brought back. Uh, I imagine they are going to be a very run-first team this year. It'll be interesting to see if they do re-sign Rashad Penny or if they move into the season with Chris Carson the last year of his deal. It sounds like they are sticking with him. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Tampa, really the biggest thing to note is the Shaq Mason trade was a really nice add for them. They get Ryan Jensen back as well, so they solidify that offensive line where they lost Alex Cappa to the Bengals. Ali Marpet retired as well, so both guards are gone. They bring in Shaq Mason, who's a good player. Ryan Jensen, obviously a good center as well. And then Tom Brady returns with Russell Gage as another weapon that they added, who used to absolutely tear them up. This is huge. Brady returning is huge for Godwin. It's huge for Mike Evans. It's huge for Gronk, who's probably coming back. Whoever the running back is now, I could see Leonard Fournette returning, although I don't know, what his contract demands are. But obviously a huge thing that Brady is coming back. Okay, the Titans, Jamarco Jones, they profile him more as a swing center, but Ben Jones coming back is a huge win for that running game. Centers really do have a huge impact on the running game, especially when you downgrade from someone like Ben Jones, which is looking like the Titans were most likely going to do up until recently when they signed him. So I think that is a big win for Derrick Henry, big win for that offense in general, and of course Ryan Tannehill. And then the last team here, so this is the one. Colts obviously traded for Carson Wentz. I don't see that as a big upgrade for them. I think it is a slight downgrade, honestly, for Antonio Gibson. Not in the sense that from last year. I just mean they could have done better than Carson Wentz, I think. But I think, J.D. McKissick coming back, that was a huge bummer for Antonio Gibson. I think that's the biggest thing. He was reportedly going to sign with the Bills. Now he's back in Washington. And, yeah, if he had left, it really would have just opened up the doors for Antonio Gibson to be that pass-catching down back, that full three-down back. But, yeah, it's disappointing if you're a Gibson owner, but, it's just the way fantasy football works. It's the way free agency works. Some guys, come back, they do their thing. But that is going to conclude this video. I will drop more stuff on Allen Robinson and Juju and more of these guys, Teron Armstead, more of these fantasy relevant players. There's still a ton more out there. Deshaun Watson could potentially get moved soon. A lot of moves to come, so stick around. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you made it to this point in the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in that comment section down below. I'll respond as always. This has been Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys for watching.